So let's just talk a little bit about the short-term let side. As I say, this is where we feel this development will do really well. As some of you will know, we've recently rebranded our short-term let department under the name of Guess, which we'll send links and everything like that for everyone to look at. But the actual operational side has been going now for nearly 30 years. We've been doing short-term lets in Chester for longer than Airbnb was even a thing, wasn't it?
I mean, we've both been here quite a period of time, and we also say 15 years. It feels like it's probably longer than that now.
Yeah, we've been saying that for a few years.
We've been saying that for a few years.
But to look at some of the headline figures, I mean, our occupancy levels in Chester is 81%, which is well above industry average.
That was on the last year, weren't it?
Yeah, so. The last 12 months. And interestingly, this calendar year, we're already at 65% occupancy level, and that's with 4 months still to go. So we know the absolute minimum that we can get is 65%, but realistically we're probably going to beat that 81%.
Going to exceed that,
based on it. So that's the stats. In terms of actually how we get those bookings, we thought it would be interesting to talk you through the types of short-term let bookings, because I think people sometimes just think of the likes of Airbnb when they think of short-term lets or service accommodation. But there is so much more to it, and I think understanding that makes you understand the investment more then.
Well, I think if people look at short-term lets, if you have a look through all the benefits of short-term lets, one of the disadvantages is always management. Now, if you self-manage a property, it is hard, but you're also going to have access to just things like Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo.
Yeah.
As a company, as a recognised landlord, if you like, we get access to all the relocation agents who wouldn't deal with an individual investor, because obviously when someone's put in a corporate client of theirs into a property, they need to know they're going to get what they've been promised. And with respect to people who do it individually, they don't know that. So for years and years and years, you build up these relationships with these companies, and Michael goes through some of the large companies we deal with, and they become your tried and trusted client base at the end of the day, and one that isn't accessible to everybody else.
Yeah. So I think we looked at, we talked to the short-term let team at the office, and we feel there's sort of three main areas. There's the obvious ones, the leisure bookings, which is straightforward Airbnb, Booking.com, them type of things. And Chester screams out for that. You know, you've got the racecourse, which is the oldest operational racecourse in the world. The city itself is such a popular place for people to visit, whether it's weekend trips, family trips.
I mean, the sun's out now. If you go into Chester Town Centre now, it will be absolutely heaving.
So, they'll always do well, and we get good bookings from that front. Then there's the company bookings that Paul mentioned, so real large corporate companies that will book out apartments for their staff to come and stay in whilst they're doing works. And we just wanted to name, some of those ones to give you an idea. We've got the likes of Nestle, HSBC, Bank of America, Airbus, which is big, is right close by Chester. We've had loads of bookings from them over the years. Vauxhall, Chester again, it's a brilliant place for its transport links, because you've got Manchester on the doorstep, you've got Liverpool, North Wales, where some of these headquarters are, and they'll use it for that.
And plus you're in London within 2 hours as well, so people coming up on contracts here who live in London, it's only 2 hours on a train.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a property literally 5-minute walk from here, a 1-bed apartment, and it's booked out for a year. By a company over in America. We booked it for 12 months, but pay on a nightly rate basis, and they have different staff that stays in there over the 12 months on it.
So I think it's important to point out why corporate companies use accommodation like self-contained apartments. It gives them massive flexibility. If you have someone who's working for you who you need accommodation for, whether that's a hotel, whether that's a self-contained apartment, any form of accommodation, I can guarantee that if you try and book something in Chester for a month, it's impossible, because what they will do is they will constantly book up the weekends as they come. So that means that they can't accommodate a long-term booking. So with Mike's property, they've got a company. They may not use it all year. They don't know. But what they do know is they've got accommodation when they need someone coming there. And it's a much misunderstood aspect of short-term lets. The corporate side, ultimately for us, is far bigger than the tourism side. The tourism side's fillers. You know, if you get a weekend, it's great to have a little filler there. And what we do when we manage it is we make sure that we manipulate the bookings so that we can always accommodate a long-term booking, because you as an investor is always going to get a better deal out of that. But that's why corporate companies use us, because it gives them that flexibility. They don't want a 6-month AST, they don't want to pay bills, they don't want to know that if their contract ends, then they've still got to pay another few months. So for example, if the company that got Mike's all of a sudden aren't in Chester anymore, they can cancel the booking.
And that tenant might change as well, the tenancy details. So
Yeah.
someone could leave their company, and if the tenancy's been in their name, they're in trouble then. But if they've booked it as a short-term let, they can replace that person with another employee on
Yeah.
it. A couple of sort of quirky ones as well. I mean, some of you maybe local to Chester will know Story House, the theatre. We get quite a lot of actors or crew that will book apartments from us.
You're not going to mention them, are you?
we had some of you may know Michelle Detrice, who was on Some of Us Do Have Them, who I'm a big fan of. Frank Spencer's sidekick. So she booked one of our apartments. I think she was in there for 3 or 4 months or something like that whilst filming was going on. But you should watch it if you haven't seen it. Paul needs to as well. So we had that. We had Lancashire Cricket Club as well. We booked it at one point. I know Graham Onion used to name drop one of the cricketers who was staying in one of our apartments in Chester. And that just builds up over time. They want trusted brands, which is what we are. We've been here for a long time.
I mean, we could go on forever about who uses short-term lets, whether it's in Chester, whether it's in Wakefield, whether it's in Doncaster. But you've got people who, with buying houses now, it's difficult. It's a long process. So they may complete in a house and can't move into another one. They don't want to rent somewhere for ages. They want somewhere that's a stopgap. You have people who've got insurance claims, so unfortunately, they've had a flood or there's been a fire, then insurance companies pay for them to go in temporary accommodation, and that temporary accommodation is a short-term let apartment. So the areas it's just so expansive, isn't it? And I think that's the most important part. Don't ever just think it goes on Airbnb and we hope for the best, because it's far more complex than that.
And speak to our team in guests. They're so experienced in there. They'll talk you through some more in detail those examples of the bookings. One just final one is contractors. That's a big area, especially local contractors. When they were building the Story House, in fact, we had a lot of bookings from that sort of thing.
Now, contractors get given a set amount per night to stay somewhere. That's generally how it works. So what they will do is they will find out what they can get for that particular budget. And I've sort of worked out now that, with properties like this and the price we're going here, that you end up on a lower rate than places like Premier Inn. Now, where would you rather be? In a self-contained apartment where you've got the freedom, or a Premier Inn? You'd rather be in one of these. So the contractors choose these, and then when one contractor chooses it, all the rest go there.
And the staff can cook their own food, everything like that. Otherwise, you'd have to give budgets.
They're
to
not
staff
topping and tailing. So it makes a lot of sense.